Welcome to Inside the 12. The tailgating has already begun. He is Taylor McGuire. I'm Pete Souza. A lot of times a host will say, we got a jam-packed show for you, or we got a jam-packed show. We've got a jam-packed show. Texas Tech head coach Joey McGuire, CBS national college football writer Shahan Jeyarajah, and of course, my man Taylor McGuire is going to break down these college football playoff rankings right now, where we've got two Big 12 teams in and another knocking at the door.
Utah in at the 13 spot. If you're a Big 12 fan, I thought that was what stood out most to me because we expected BYU and Texas Tech to be there at the top. But for Utah to be ahead of any of the ACC representatives, I thought that speaks to where the committee feels like the Big 12 is relative to the ACC. And you go back to the out-of-conference matchups between these two and how well the Big 12 played against the ACC and non-conference. I think you're seeing that here in the respect that the committee has for the Big 12.
Another feather in the cap for the Big 12, BYU and Texas Tech. That is noon Eastern time on ABC. Before that, of course, ESPN's College Game Day will be there. Kalani Sitake looks like he's walking out to the octagon to take on Joey McGuire and Texas Tech, and for very good reason. This is a heavyweight fight.
It's going to be a massive matchup. All the eyes of college football will start their day at College Game Day with this game. And the biggest matchup for Texas Tech since that showdown against Texas in 2008 at home there in Lubbock. This is a huge matchup with championship implications in Lubbock between BYU and Texas Tech.
Speaking of Texas Tech, we welcome in Texas Tech head coach Joey McGuire. Coach, thanks for joining us. Huge game this weekend. How you doing?
Man, thanks for having me. Appreciate being on the show. Doing good. You know, we had a good Tuesday. It's crazy around here right now. I mean, I bet there's 1,000 tents wrapping around the stadium. I walked out of here last night at 9:15. My truck is probably 40 yards away from the front door, and I got in my truck at 10:46. So that kind of tells you how many pictures and autographs and all kinds of stuff that I did because our students are jacked up for this game.
Coach, we want to dig into that game in just a second, but last night the first round of the college football rankings come out, and the Big 12 has 3 teams in the rankings, and not just 3 teams, but the Big 12 has all 3 teams ahead of anybody from the ACC. From your perspective, what does that say just about the health overall of the league?
Yeah, I think it's pretty incredible, the level of football that's being played right now in the Big 12. You know, and again, I was biased last year. I thought that we should have gotten 2 in. You know, I thought BYU should have been in the playoffs. They beat SMU head-to-head at SMU. And so hopefully people are seeing that the Big 12, we play great football every single week. You're going to have somebody knock somebody off just because I think there's great players and then there are great coaches in this league.
Well, Coach, you talk about the great players and coaches in this league. Your team has displayed great balance on both sides of the ball. I mean, your defense ranked in the top 5 in the country, your offense putting up points per game, top 5 in the country. Can you speak to that balance a little bit and how you've been able to lean on that to such great success this year?
But, you know, even before the transfer portal opened last year, I felt like we won the offseason from the standpoint, you know, we added 2 brand new coordinators, Shill Wood on defense and Mac Leftwich on offense. And, man, I just, through the interview process with those guys, man, I just fell in love with what they wanted to do and their thought process and what they believe in. And then we added some great players, and we were able to get some great players to come back to Texas Tech. And, you know, we talk about all the time, hey, if we give up a score on defense, then you got to answer a score with a score. So it's this complementary football, and our players have bought into that. I mean, they talk about it. Like before I ever get to them, they're already talking about, hey, thank the offense or thank the defense for what they're doing.
Coach, you talk about winning the offseason and the pieces that you brought in, and there's been so much made of the talent acquisition from this offseason specifically, but a lot of teams bring in great players. Can you speak to not just that you brought these players in, but the buy-in and clearly the culture that you've built in Lubbock and the success that you're getting out of those portal acquisitions?
Yeah, I think it says a lot about our culture. I think it says a lot about our staff. Man, whenever I say our staff, I mean our trainers, our strength staff, our nutritionists, our sports therapists, our administration. It says a lot about the building as far as the facilities that we pour into these players. And one thing that we try to do is we try to be the same every single day, no matter what's going on. You know, they're going to get the same coaches, they're going to get the same support staff around them, and they know how much we care about them, so that there's a huge buy-in.
I think one of the scariest parts about Texas Tech is you're only getting more and more cohesive by the week with all these new parts, and now you take it into an undefeated BYU matchup. We knife through all the excitement and the hype for this game, and we get down to football. What do you guys have to do to win the game on Saturday?
Well, first, Kalani's my dude, man. I have so much respect for him. I think the culture that he has built there, like I said, man, I tried as many times as I could voicing that I thought he should have been in the playoffs last year. You know, the one thing we have to do is we got to be extremely physical. We're playing this is a big boy game. Like this is going to be, you know, who wants to play football the most. BYU's extremely physical. You know, they're taking the ball away at a high rate. They're a +10 on the year turnover margin. We're a +8. So it's going to come out, you know, it's one of the oldest stats in football, you know, who wins the turnover battle. And I think that's going to be a big part of it. So, you know, we've got to understand this is going to be a really close game. It's going to be a fight for 4 quarters, and we got to be willing to be the first to the fight. You know, like I tell our guys, if you're first to fight, you got to be the last one standing. And, man, we got to be able to do that on Saturday, because this is a really good football team. You know, the one thing I can say about the CFP with the Big 12, if it ended today and BYU and Tech were in the playoffs right now, then they would be right, because BYU deserves to be in the playoffs. We just got to go make sure that we're as deserving and we take care of business on Saturday.
A heavyweight fight going down Saturday in Lubbock. Number 7 BYU against number 8 Texas Tech. You can watch at noon Eastern time on ABC, preceded by College Game Day. Coach, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
You bet, man. Thank you, guys. Wreck 'em.
Wreck 'em.
That's right.
That is Texas Tech head coach Joey McGuire, and we are going to step aside and come back with a breakdown of the college football playoff rankings. Shahan J. Araja, CBS college national football writer, takes us inside. Welcome back to Inside the 12. It is time to dive into the college football playoff rankings and all the hot news around college football, specifically the Big 12. So we welcome in now college football writer for CBS, Shahan J. Araja, who covers it all, but this morning he's going back to his Big 12 roots, and he's talking about the Big 12. Tuesday night, right, into Wednesday morning, we're going back a little bit. If you're Brett Yormark and you wake up, you see 2 teams in that bracket, right? And you've got one banging on the door in Utah. It's got to be a good morning for Brett Yormark when he wakes up and sees that.
No doubt about it. And I actually think that the Utah piece might be the most important one on the board, because both of the teams that are ranked ahead of them have a head-to-head win. So this gives you almost a floor for your Big 12 teams. I mean, I don't think that Texas Tech or BYU, regardless of who loses this weekend, has any chance of falling below, let's say, number 12 or 13 in the rankings. That's a great place to be. I mean, look, you obviously have an ACC team and a group of 5 team that will come from outside of that top 12 and make the field. But I think that the league is in tremendous position right now to contend for multiple bids into the college football playoff.
Shahan, there's a number of matchups and head-to-heads as we get into the month of November. But if we asked you to look into your crystal ball with all of these 1-loss and 2-loss teams, who do you think ends up in Arlington for the Big 12 championship?
I'm not going to overthink it. I think that we do get a rematch of this weekend, Texas Tech versus BYU. I think that these are the 2 best teams in the Big 12. And the other piece of it as well is, while Utah might be 3rd, both of those teams have a head-to-head victory over Utah. That's a huge advantage heading down the stretch. Let's go back to the 2024 season. Tiebreakers ended up being ultra important when it came to making it to Arlington, and whether they are 1 or 2 loss teams, I think that having that little piece is going to prove critical when it comes to making that final game.
Is there any little bit of chaos you see that could possibly develop that could throw this plan off right now, as we do seem headed down the tracks? As you mentioned, you don't want to overthink it, but if there's a chaotic piece that could play in and shake this thing up, what is it?
Well, I mean, look, here's the reality, right? Is that there's a lot of teams who are obviously in the 1-2 loss range of the Big 12 race. A lot of these teams play each other down the stretch. I'm looking at a team like TCU that I think is a pretty high quality team. They play multiple contenders down the stretch. It's easily possible that BYU drops a game somewhere that they shouldn't, that Texas Tech drops a second game. And suddenly if that happens and we're talking about multiple teams at 2 losses vying for number 2, all bets are off. So there's plenty left that has to happen, and these top 3 teams especially really need to take care of business to give themselves a chance.
I want to hear what's going on with Oklahoma State and their coaching search. Have you heard any early developments, having a lot of time to maybe sort it out, being at the front of the line when you see a lot of these other openings kind of coming together recently?
Well, I'm glad that you pointed that out, because there are going to be numerous openings in college football this year, including, by the way, we already have 3 in the SEC. But I think that kind of the minor advantage that Oklahoma State has is that it's kind of in its own place, right? Like, you're not necessarily competing. It's actually 4 SEC teams, by the way, with Auburn opening. But you're not necessarily competing for all of the same candidates with those schools. Maybe with Arkansas you overlap a little bit, but you're not competing with Penn State for candidates. You get to be first in line to a certain type of candidate, maybe one who has a Big 12 background, maybe one who's coming from the state of Texas. And for that reason, and by the way, he has a great quarterback to come along with him, I think that Eric Morris at North Texas is an easy first call for Oklahoma State to make. Only a couple hours down the road in Denton, Texas. They are 8-1 at this point, just beat Navy last weekend. They are right in the thick of the college football playoff and American Conference race. I think that they would be a tremendous addition to Oklahoma State, and he'd be able to bring over his quarterback, Drew Mestemaker, who just threw for over 600 yards 2 weeks ago. So I think that that would be my obvious first call, but there's a lot of different directions that they could choose to go. And the fact that they're here early means, again, that they're at the front of the line.
Shahan, to go back to Lubbock with this matchup, top 10 matchup, BYU and Texas Tech. College game day will be there. Really all the eyes of the sport to start the day will be on this matchup. Can you frame for us just how important this game is, not just for this week and for the college football playoff, but for the league as a whole?
Well, let's go back to 2008, because that was the last time that Texas Tech hosted college game day. But while obviously that's one big piece, I think that that just sets the tone for what this game means to the city of Lubbock. They understand that this game against BYU is going to be one of the biggest games in the history of Texas Tech University. There are fans that have been lining up since Sunday night to get into that game that are going to be there for 6 full days. You have, of course, all the big shows coming down. I will also be there. You know, I think that adds a little bit of I think that adds a little bit to the game. But I think that also when you look at it from BYU's perspective, this is a huge prove-it spot for them as well. They're undefeated, but they're the last of the undefeateds in the power conferences right now. They're number 7 behind some of those other teams and behind, by the way, SEC teams that have 1 loss. If you win this game and if you win it convincingly in Lubbock, you suddenly jump into the echelon of competing for a bye in the college football playoff, of being a top 4 or a top 3 type of team. So huge implications for both these programs, not just for this weekend and this season, but also for their positioning heading forward.
I love this dude. He's a sicko, dude. He's all about it. Shahan Jayarajah, check him out. Everywhere you can find college football news, you will find national football writer for CBS Sports, Shahan Jayarajah. Look forward to seeing your stuff from Lubbock this weekend, man. Go ahead. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, that's Shahan Jayarajah. When we come back, we got another game breaker, Jeff Sims. Woo, he is lighting it up. Taylor's taking us inside the quarterback club with the backup, who is obviously ready for his close-up too. Well, so much talk about Texas Tech and BYU early in the show. It is warranted, but do not forget about Utah and Arizona State. The Utes on Saturday night picking up a huge upset at home against Cincinnati, 45-14. And then for the Sun Devils, no Sam Levitt, no Jordan Tyson, no problem. Jeff Sims, an outstanding afternoon, earning him AP Player of the Week. Did it with his arm and did it with his feet. We welcome you back inside. The dual threat quarterback himself, Taylor McGuire. I'm Pete Souza. Let's start with Utah. this is a team now, they're banging on the door for that college football playoff, and they certainly delivered last weekend.
It's still a tough place to play. You go to Rice-Eccles at night, always a tough place to go on the road and get a win. And I thought the way that Utah won that game is exactly what you would have hoped if you were a Utah Utes fan. The biggest stat that stood out to me was dominating time of possession, 2-1. Cincinnati had the ball for less than 20 minutes of that game. And it got out of hand quickly. After Cincinnati missed that field goal, it felt like the wind really out of the sails for the Bearcats, and they couldn't find a way to get back in that game. Thought Devin Dampier played extremely well, and they converted third downs at a high level, 2 for 2 on fourth downs. Sometimes your best defense is a good offense, and Utah staying on the field, I thought, is what led in a lot of respects to that win over Cincinnati.
Well, how about Arizona State? I got to go to the notes for this one because I want to make sure I get it right, and you guys are on board with me with this. 177 passing yards for Jeff Sims, but 228 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. That will take you inside the quarterback club with Taylor McGuire.
There's no doubt. For Arizona State, they knew coming into this game that they were going to have to run the football well, and that is exactly what happened. And I think the clips that we're going to talk through today in the quarterback club, a lot of this is play action and then the running game. Because of how effective Sims was running the football against that Iowa State front, you had eyes in the backfield for these secondary players, and I thought it affected them. But as we work through these, this is a great example of it in the red zone. They leak the tight end out. You've got play action coming across, and look at all the eyes in the backfield from the secondary. Tight end leaks up to the right side, hits Mateer in the end zone for a wide open touchdown. And again, this is all set up. You can see it drawn up here. That play action bringing down that linebacker. It's causing some confusion at that secondary level. Tight end running wide open behind. Good accurate throw from Sims. This is another one. This is a simple, easy completion, but watch the corner step down off of the play action, throw the RPO in behind it. This, again, going back to if you have your quarterback +1 run game this effective, you get all these eyes for Iowa State in the backfield. Good job and recognition by Sims finding the open receiver into the boundary, and then this turns into a big play for McLean. And then the last one, this is what, if you watch this game and watch the tape on this, so effective all game. Just the design +1 quarterback run game off to the left side. Iowa State really did not have an answer for this. You talk about over 200 yards on the ground at the quarterback spot, not to mention an 80-plus yard touchdown that we'll talk about in a minute. But all of these clips, I think, speak to if you can run the football well, especially with your quarterback, it sets up the play action, and these were all great examples of it right here.
What was the most unique thing about his performance for Sims?
Toughness. I think coming off the bench, and a guy that I think if you go back to the adversity that he's faced in his career, this was a huge moment for him. And I think a lot of us looked past this game and thought maybe Arizona State's season was over. And Sims said, absolutely not. Here's my moment that I can step up. Showed a ton of toughness and a gritty performance for this Sun Devils quarterback.
Again, Utah and Arizona State still in the race for Arlington. That trip to AT&T Stadium on December 6th, where they will play the Big 12 championship game. All right, it is time for our game-breaking plays brought to you by Hell of a Good Dips. Game on, dip in with Hell of a Good, and this is a hell of a good play right here. Jeff Sims, right up the middle, breaking tackles. It's that toughness you talked about. See ya in the end zone. House call. 88 yards, part of that record-setting performance for Sims.
How about the first possession of the game for Arizona? Right out of the gate, Noah Fafita screen to Trey Spivey. Watch how many broken tackles on this play. How about this toughness and resilience from Spivey going the distance. 4 touchdowns on the day for Fafita as Arizona rolls 52-7 over the Buffaloes.
And how about West Virginia? A huge upset on the road in Houston. One of the big reasons why, a pick 6 right here. Jordan Scruggs saying, I'll take that, taking it to the house. Returns it. West Virginia would win the game 45-35. This is an 80-yard touchdown return. We want you to stay with us on Inside the 12 because when we come back, we are breaking down the biggest games this weekend in college football. We'll take you inside the matchups. Inside the 12 with Taylor McCarg when we come back. Inside the 12 is brought to you by Hell of a Good Dip. Game on, dip in with Hell of a Good. A lot of teams on byes this week. We are talking about Arizona State, Baylor, Cincinnati, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, and Utah. But you can't overlook BYU at Texas Tech. College Game Day on ESPN. That's going to be noon Eastern time on ABC. That's when kickoff is. We cannot wait for that one. But we've got a bunch of games to get into right now as we welcome you back inside. Taylor McGuire alongside Pete Souza. When we start these games, looking at the first one, FS1, 8 p.m. Friday night, we've got Houston going to UCF. Now, the Cougars had a bad loss last week at West Virginia. Connor Wegman turning it over 3 times with 2 touchdowns and a fumble, or excuse me, 2 interceptions and a fumble. Over the course of the year, though, he has 16 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. He's been playing great.
Outside of last week, Connor Wegman had a fantastic season, but last week extremely disappointing for Houston overall. A game that we talked about. They needed in a potential bounce back spot. Could they get a win over West Virginia where they needed to at home? They had playoff aspirations, championship aspirations, and now they do not control their own destiny. They're going to need some help. Can they get themselves off the mat against a UCF team that's 4-1 at home? They're 0-4 on the road, but going to the bounce house, that's where UCF has played extremely well. UCF trying to get to that 5th win, talking about bowl eligibility this season, which I think would be huge for UCF in this first season again for Scott Frost. So this is a big spot for Houston. Can they get themselves back some momentum on the road against UCF?
And it's not going to be easy. Like you said, that is a different team at the bounce house. We go now on TNT and HBO Max at noon Eastern time. Coach Prime and his squad will take a trip to Morgantown, West Virginia, where the Mountaineers are nearly a 7-point favorite at home with Scotty Fox. All the Pistons pumping for this young man.
Coming off a huge win, their first win in league play over Houston on the road. And what a revelation Scotty Fox has been for that offense. Colorado, they're going to also go with their young guy, Julian Lewis. I think for Colorado, really both of these teams, you're looking to just try and maintain some sort of momentum. For West Virginia, it's keep that momentum from the week ago against Houston, and for Colorado, trying to find some answers on the offensive side of the ball. But we know how difficult it is to go into Morgantown and get a win. This is a team that had a win at home against Pitt earlier in this season. I like West Virginia in this game, but this is a big spot for Julian Lewis and that Colorado offense as well.
Yeah, and West Virginia was able to drag TCU into the deep end and barely lost that game, so they are going to mean business on Saturday. We go now to TCU, right? They are taking on Iowa State. That game, 3:30 Eastern time on Fox. Josh Hoover and Rocco Beck. That would have been the story before the season, but you're telling me this is more of a matchup situation now.
In the end of September, we would have said this has championship implications at this point of the season. Now you look up in November, and for Iowa State, still reeling. October was not kind to the Cyclones. TCU is one of those teams that we kind of has been under the radar, still sitting there with just 2 losses. And for TCU, I think it's going to be how well can they run the football against Iowa State's rush defense. We know the struggles that they've had, especially you look up a week ago at how much they struggled stopping the run against Arizona State. Josh Hoover in this offense, we know how explosive they are. Can they get the stops that they need against the Cyclones and keep their hopes alive? TCU, they do still need some help ahead of them, but they still have an opportunity if they were to win out. They've got some big matchups down the stretch in league play, BYU being one of them. Need to get a win here, obviously, to keep those hopes and dreams alive of Big 12 play.
For Sonny Dykes and the squad, it starts with holding serve this Saturday. And for us, it ends right now. Inside the 12, we're ready to sign off. But look, we have a great weekend of college football to look forward to, especially in the Big 12. BYU, Texas Tech, College Game Day. You don't want to miss that one at noon on ABC, and you don't want to miss us. We will be back next week.